It was the 25th of November, 1809, at an inn in Pearlburg. Everything seemed ordinary, the usual hustle of preparing for departure. Witnesses saw him step out of the tavern and head toward his carriage in the fading evening light. Around 4:30, in the late November chill, a light wind brushing the trees, and his coat. His assistants, including his secretary and the courier Herr Krause, were busy with luggage and paying the bills. But when the carriage was ready a few minutes later, the passenger was gone. Just a few steps from the horses, on the stone-paved yard, he vanished without a sound. His belongings and documents remained inside the carriage. From that moment on, nobody saw him again. Benjamin Bathurst was a young British diplomat, returning home from a mission in Vienna. He had been working to strengthen alliances against Napoleon. He carried diplomatic letters and instructions from the British government for Austria and Prussia, critical information for coordinating efforts against French expansion. Every letter, every seal, every document had been carefully checked by Bathurst himself before departure. Riding with him was the courier, Herr Krause, tasked with keeping the documents safe. Even the most meticulous precautions couldn't prevent what happened next. Bathurst was an experienced traveler, aware of the dangers of the road through Prussia, where military unrest was common. Before leaving the inn, he reviewed his letters, prepared his luggage. He carried secrets on which the fate of nations depended. Every step was calculated, and yet, no one could have predicted what came next. Pearlburg was a small town on the road to Hamburg. Bathurst stopped at the inn, arranged for fresh horses, and went to the hotel. He had dinner, wrote letters, and prepared for the next leg of his journey. Witnesses said he appeared calm, focused. The early evening fog was settling. The lamps cast a soft glow, and a chilly breeze rustled the trees and his coat. Everything seemed ordinary, yet tension quietly hung in the air. An ordinary evening, the last moment of calm before the unknown. Nobody knew that in just a few steps, history would change forever. When told that the carriage was ready, Bathurst stepped toward it. He took only a few steps and vanished, as if he had dissolved into thin air, leaving all his belongings behind. Witnesses, including his secretary and the courier Herr Krause, immediately began checking around the carriage. They examined the ground beneath the horses, inspected the luggage, looked in every corner of the yard, but found nothing. Herr Krause was the first to raise the alarm. He disappeared right before their eyes, as if the world itself had swallowed him. All that remained was the empty space where he had just stood. Searches began immediately. The town streets and roads leading to nearby villages were checked. Innkeepers and passers-by were questioned. Every corner was examined. Every person questioned, yet no answers emerged. Local authorities joined the effort, bringing in townspeople, sending messages to neighboring villages, and patrolling nearby woods and paths. Rewards were offered for any information, but nothing came of it. Questions multiplied, but no one had answers. Each passing minute only deepened the mystery. A few days later, Bathurst's coat was found about 15 to 20 paces from the inn, folded neatly, untouched by violence, away from the road. It gave no clue about what had happened. A few weeks later, his trousers were found in a nearby forest, also clean and undisturbed. His belongings said nothing about what had really happened. Each discovery raised more questions, but brought no answers. Local officials, in-staff, and representatives of the British diplomatic corps threw themselves into the search. They scoured the streets, sent patrols down every road, and combed through the dark, silent woods. Every witness was questioned. Innkeepers, travelers, even the smallest passerby. Each question seemed to dissolve into the cold, evening air. Messages were sent to surrounding towns. Rewards were promised for any clue. Couriers rode from village to village, letters in hand, desperate to catch even the faintest whisper of information. Villagers joined the search, trudging through frost-hardened ground, scanning every shadow. And still, nothing. Every trail ended at a blank wall of silence. Every potential lead vanished like mist. Herr Krause and the secretary retraced their steps, scanning the carriage yard again, hoping for the slightest hint. But the empty space where Bathurst had stood remained untouched, a ghostly imprint against reality. No suspect was found. No explanation could pierce the fog. The official conclusion was clear. He vanished in an instant. No struggle, no evidence, just an empty yard and a question that no one could answer. Bathurst's body was never found. His disappearance became one of the most puzzling mysteries of the early 19th century. Bathurst's body was never found. His disappearance became one of the most puzzling mysteries of the early 19th century. The man was gone, and all that remained were questions. And the big question: can a disappearance in a single moment change history? Benjamin Bathurst, a British diplomat, vanished mysteriously in 1809. And no one really knows what he looked like. This portrait is just a later guess.